There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. Order. Honorable members, on Thursday, the 21st August 2014, during questions to the President in the National Assembly, an incident involving members of the economic freedom fighters led to the disruption of proceedings to the extent that the House had to be adjourned in terms of Rule 56, and the Assembly was prevented from finalizing its scheduled business for that day. I have to inform the House that the matter is being referred to the Powers and Privileges Committee in terms of Rule 194. The committee to investigate whether the conduct of the members of the economic freedom fighters constitutes contempt of Parliament in terms of the powers, privileges, and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act 2004, number 4 of 2004. The committee is being requested to deal with this as a matter of urgency, with due regard to the rules of the National Assembly and the schedule to the rules, and to submit a report on its findings and recommendations in terms of Rule 194(2)(b) at the earliest opportunity. Honorable members, while the Powers and Privileges Committee is considering the matter, I also wish to inform the House that I am considering the implementation of item 10 of the schedule to the rules, which makes provision for the suspension of members where the allegations against them are of a very serious nature. To this end, I am affording the members concerned an opportunity to give reasons in writing why they should not be suspended. This is in terms of item 11 of the schedule. The House will be kept informed of developments in this regard. We now come to notices of motion. Does any member wish to give notice of a motion? Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates an integrated approach to address substance and alcohol abuse. I thank you.
Any other notice of a motion? Honorable Steenhuisen.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I hereby give notice on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House requests the Rules Committee to 1. Review the effectiveness of oral questions to the Executive in holding the Executive to account. 2. Review the relationship between the Executive and Parliament and its impact on democratic functioning. 3. Make recommendations on how to improve oral questions to the Executive so that A. Parliament can fulfill its constitutional obligations fully and with democratic integrity, and B. Parliament addresses the root cause of the disruption of 21st of August, and 4. Reports back to the House on this matter by the 30th of September. I so move.
Any other notices of motion? Yes, Honourable Member.
Madam Speaker, I hereby give notice that I shall move at the earliest opportunity that the House, noting the tragic death of 15 South African National Defence Force soldiers as a result of the conflict in the Central African Republic in March 2013, establish an ad hoc committee to inquire into the circumstances surrounding the deployment of the SANDF in the Central African Republic and the details of their engagement in the armed conflict in that country in 2013. Propose measures in view of the Assembly's oversight function that could prevent similar incidents from occurring in future deployments. That the committee consists of 11 members as follows: ANC 6, DA 3, EFF 1, and other parties 1, and exercise the powers in Rule 138 it may deem necessary for the performance of its tasks, and report to the Assembly on the 31st of October 2014. I so move.
Any other notice of a motion? Yes, Honourable Member of the EFF.
Honourable Speaker, the Economic Freedom Fighters rise to move a draft resolution that the House notes that on the 17th of April 2014, EFF and other opposition parties lodged a complaint with the Electoral Court. Further notes that the complaint ultimately resulted in the Electoral Court judgment issued on the 18th of June 2014, that the court is of the view that the misconduct of the respondent has been established on balance of probabilities and having regard to the provisions of Section 7.
Yes, is it a point of order? Yes, Honourable.
This is not supposed to be a motion, and the member is out of order.
Honourable Member, this matter is going to be handled in a different way, as you know, as Parliament dealing with issues of the structures that we form.
Honourable Speaker, on notice of motions, it's either you make a statement for subject for discussion or you make a draft resolution which does not need the House to agree. So we are making a notice of motion in the form of a draft resolution. If that is the case...
In the form of the notice of motion, we're saying deal with it differently. We're not objecting to the matter itself. We're just saying deal with it differently. Any other... There was a hand. No, I've taken 2 DA members already. Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the next sitting day, I'll move on behalf of the NFP as follows: that this House conveys condolences to the wife and children and family members of the late Professor A.C. Nkabinde, the first black rector of the University of Zululand. Professor Nkabinde was a dedicated strategist, intellectual, and astute administrator who made an indelible mark and long-lasting contribution to higher education and training. Under the leadership of Professor Charles Nkabinde, the University of Zululand produced a lot of leaders who occupy various positions in politics, business, and civil society. I so move.
Babu Mponchane.
Honourable Speaker, I was standing up to object to that motion because I think it's written at a wrong time. Thank you.
Statement. Yes, Honourable Member at the back. Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise to move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates expanding access to food production schemes in rural areas. Thank you.
Honourable Member of the ANC at the back.
I move on behalf of the ANC that in the next sitting, the House debates countering the rise and prevalence of chronic diseases like hypertension and diabetes.
Honorable member, I think you are from Cope. Yes.
Thank you, Chairperson. I move on behalf of the Congress of the People that the House debate the reality that thousands of FET students are being blocked from furthering their education or finding jobs because they have not received their matric certificates dating as far back as 2009. I thank you.
Honorable member of the EFF at the back.
I move on behalf of the EFF that in its next
You
sitting,
give notice.
in its next sitting, the House must discuss the quality of housing and sanitation in black residential areas.
Okay. Honorable member of the DA.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hereby move on behalf of Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates the unlawful invasion of land in the Western Cape by representatives of Sesikona People Rights. Thank you.
Honorable member.
Honorable Speaker, I hereby move on behalf of the EFF that in its next sitting, the House discuss the provision of the state, the provision by the state of quality free fair education, at least for the poor, until the first degree.
Honorable member. Asukuva.
Aniliva. I move, Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the ANC, that in its next sitting, the House debates deepening South Africans' integration regionally, continentally, and globally.
Yes, honorable member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates the high incidence of sexual assault of learners by teachers in South African schools. I thank you.
Right at the back. The one who's turning and looking at the back.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
No, the other one. There he is.
Speaker, on behalf of the National Freedom Party, in the next sitting of the House, I shall move that the issue of educators who are resigning because of fearing that they will lose their benefits as from next year be discussed. I so move.
Yes, the honorable member who was on his feet.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party, I shall move at the next sitting of this House that the House debate how the kidnapping, rape, and forced marriage of underage girls under the guise of Uktwala can be eradicated in our country. I thank you.
Yes, honorable member.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the EFF, I hereby move that in the next sitting of the House, we discuss the role of security and police in the business of Parliament and the legislature. I so move.
Right at the back.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the National Freedom Party, I hereby move a motion that in the next sitting, the House debate the issue of poor water provision, especially in KZN, where we have seen number of protests and blocking of the roads. I thank you.
Honorable member at the corner.
Honorable Speaker, I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates creating programs for students, both at school and university level, that will help them to understand the past and forge a new national identity for the country. I so move.
Yes, honorable member of the EFF.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The economic freedom fighters rise to move a draft resolution that the House knows that on the 16th August 34 mine workers in Marikana were killed by the police. Notes that the workers held a second anniversary commemoration on the 16th August 2014 at Marikana. Further agrees that mine workers were demanding 12,500 rand per month salary. Acknowledge that across the country, mine workers live and work under appalling conditions for meager income in the mines and minerals industry. Further acknowledge that the mining and mineral sector has not fully complied with all provisions of the mining charter agreed to by all stakeholders. Agrees to set up a parliamentary commission of inquiry on remuneration and condition of service of mine workers in South Africa. Agrees that the commission shall perform all such duties and have all such powers that will be conferred to it by the House once established.
Honorable members, I think we've exhausted the notices of motion. Can we now move to the motion on the order paper? Oh, well, at motions without notice. There's no motion without, oh, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes the recent appointment of Dr. Albert van Jaarsveld as the new Vice Chancellor for the University of KwaZulu-Natal, who is currently Chief Executive Officer of the National Research Foundation. Further notes that Dr. van Jaarsveld will occupy his new position from the 1st of February 2015, and he will be taking over from Professor Malogopu Makgoba, whose term ends on the 31st of December this year. Acknowledges that Dr. van Jaarsveld has a wealth of experience in academia and higher education in general, having served in different capacities within the sector. Further acknowledges that the role that was played by his predecessor, Professor Makgoba, and wishes him well in his future endeavors. And we congratulate Dr. van Jaarsveld in his new position and wishes him well in his tenure. I thank you.
Any other motions without notice? Okay. We can now. Honorable members, that was a non-controversial motion without notice, and I hope the House agrees to it. To congratulate our fellow countryman who has assumed higher office. Is there any objection? The motion without notice has been agreed to. No other motions without notice. I now move to the motion on the order paper. And what we have, we continue on the subject for discussion. Honorable Chief Whip.
Honorable Speaker, I move that the House resumes proceedings of the Rental Housing Amendment Bill at the stage it reached on the last day of the 6th session of the 4th Parliament. I so move.
Are there any objections, honorable members? We come to members' statements. The next item on the order paper is members' statements. Does any member of the ANC wish to make a statement?
Honorable Speaker, the African National Congress strongly condemns the alleged rape of a female member of public by the clerk of the court, the Small Claims Court, in his office at Palm Ridge Magistrates Court, that such a despicable act could be carried out within the walls of institution of justice and during the Women's Month is outrageous and deeply concerning. We are aware of the presumption of innocent until proven guilty, but it is really disturbing that officials who are expected to be serving members of the public and enforce the law are facing such serious charges, especially committed during working hours within the precincts of justice institution. We welcome the move by the department, which has already served the offender with a suspension letter, and are pleased that disciplinary action will follow and the law will take its course. We are heartened that the complainant is receiving counseling and necessary support from the department. We are of the view that this is an isolated incident that does not reflect a general conduct of court officials. I thank you.
The DA.
Thank you, Speaker. The DA is horrified by the baseless public attacks launched by the ANC against our public protector, Advocate Thuli Madonsela. The ANC is showing no respect for the Constitution by failing to abide by the constitutional imperative that the work of the public protector be completed without fear, favor, or prejudice, as per Section 1812 of the Constitution. It is a most alarming trend that members and leadership of the ANC have taken to attacking and undermining constitutional bodies and processes when their findings go against the ANC in any of its forms or iterations. Chapter 9 institutions, like that of the Public Protector, are independent. A review by a court of law is the only constitutional means for disagreeing with the work of such institutions. In the matter of the Public Protector's Secure and Comfort report and her letter to the President dated 21 August, it is factually correct that the President has not to date responded to the remedial action steps of the Public Protector. For this reason, the letter of the Public Protector to the President cannot be said to interfere with the processes of Parliament, but has in fact aided and assisted the work of Parliament and its Nkandla ad hoc committee to hold the President to account. It's clear that the ANC is currently drowning in a sea of accusations and findings against President Zuma, and that they've become so desperate that they will do anything to prevent him from being held accountable. The DA will not allow this to go unchecked.
The EFF.
Thank you. The latest reports that the former Chief of State Protocol at International Relations, Mr. Bruce Kolwane, is in line to get a lucrative diplomatic job overseas has confirmed what we have always suspected. This is officially was charged and fired for Gupta landing of aircraft in Waterkloof. It is not surprising that he is now being rewarded for agreeing to be a sacrificial lamb in covering his political bosses. We have always smelled a rat in this case. It is now clear that a behind-the-scene deal was sealed in exchange for a big diplomatic job abroad. Wherever he is, he should be smiling because the deal is finally paying off. The Gupta Gate scandal remains mystery and unresolved to date. That is, at least if you look at it face value. There is one thing we know, that is very difficult to suppress the truth. The fact of the matter is that President Jacob Zuma is a friend to the Guptas. It is a public knowledge. We are convinced that political influence was used to allow the Guptas to land their aircraft at Waterkloof. This was a serious breach of state security. The ANC continues to undermine our intelligence. They think that South Africans cannot think and they cannot just do as they wish, get away with it. Jacob Zuma presidency has always been involved in scandals in one way or the other. The ANC has always deemed it fit to dismiss all these scandals in protecting the image of one man, even if it means risking the reputation of their party to the South African and electorate and abroad. We want to warn the ANC that you cannot do this forever. You are testing our people's patience. Thank you.
The ANC.
Honorable Speaker, this side.
Yes, Honorable Member.
As the African National Congress in caucus, we wish to raise an issue in the manner in which the public protector continues to carry her duties and responsibilities with due recognition and respect of the separation of powers. The recent correspondence where she wrote to the President
requesting clarity on the president regarding the investigations into security upgrades in his private residence shows clearly that there is indeed a conduct that seeks to undermine this institution and seeks to interfere with Parliament's own processes and businesses.
I raise on a point of order.
Yes.
I would like to refer you to section 181(4) of the Constitution, which clearly indicates that no person or organ of state may interfere with the functioning of these institutions, and the public protector is one. Parliament should not give any attention to a statement like this, and I would suggest it's out of order.
Honourable Member, in terms of how Parliament must deal with the structures concerned, as the Honourable Mulder points out, we should deal with it differently because we appoint them. The IFP.
Honourable Speaker, it seems the Gupta family's ambitions know no bounds. Not only are they closely linked with the president and the ruling party, they have now acquired diplomatic passports in Lesotho, presumably because it could not be managed in our country. According to the Prime Minister of Lesotho, the Guptas are, quote unquote, good friends with the President of the Republic of South Africa and the ruling party, and that is endorsement enough. The fact that the introductions were done on such a personal level shows how influential this family is of our leaders. This whole situation comes at a time when the Lesotho government is experiencing a fragile political situation, and the Prime Minister seems to have taken advantage of that to give diplomatic status to the Guptas. Even opposition parties in his own government know that associating with this family is a sign that the country's leaders have been infiltrated by their influence. If our government was more decisive, the Gupta family would have been put in their place long time ago. Instead, their newspaper is awarded lucrative government contracts while they are allowed to land at a national key point without consequences. Even the man blamed for allowing the landing was demoted one moment and then promoted to an ambassadorial post the next. The influence that our government has allowed this family to have over our leaders is disgraceful indeed. I thank you.
The FF.
Die Vryheidsfront Plus neem kennis dat Transnet en die trustees van die twee pensioenfondse besluit het om teen die klasaksiehofbevel toegestaan deur die Noord-Gautengse Hooggeregshof te appeleer. Die Vryheidsfront Plus neem ook kennis dat die hoofuitvoerende beampte van Transnet, meneer Brian Molefe, aan 'n senior joernalis gesê het dat die pensionarisse is begunstigdes van apartheid wat op geen vergoeding aanspraak kan maak nie. Verder het hy ook gesê dat as hulle die revolusie in die strate verder wil voer, moet hulle net sê wat natuurlik 'n dreigement is aan onskuldige ou mense. Gegee hierdie hardkoppigheid van Transnet en begeerte om 'n revolusie aan te voer teen onskuldige pensionarisse, waarvan bykans die helfte swartbrein en Indiër mense is, het die Vryheidsfront Plus geen keuse om die volgende drastiese stappe te neem nie. Die Vryheidsfront Plus gaan die klasaksiehof uitspraak aan al Transnet se bestaande krediteure, kapitaaluitbreiding diensverskaffers en die groot kredietgraderingsagentskap bestuur vir kennisname ten einde te verseker Transnet kom sy verpligtinge na teenoor die pensioenfondse en die pensionarisse soos vervat deur artikel 51(1)d van die Wet op Openbare Finansiële Bestuur 1 van 1999. Transnet moet besef dat dit 'n kredietgradering in die gesig staar weens die stroping van die bates van die pensioenfondse en die diefstal van die geld van onskuldige pensionarisse. Transnet gaan 'n prys daarvoor betaal. Daarvoor sal die Vryheidsfront Plus sorg. Baie dankie.
Die ANC.
Speaker, a 24-year-old second-year medical student studying in Havana, Cuba, at Latin America School of Medicine, Komisani Maketa, has confirmed what the ANC has been saying all along, that the experience of studying in Cuba can never be replaced and is an opportunity of a lifetime. In a letter addressed to me as her leader in the constituency, Ms. Maketa stated that studying in Cuba has not only changed her outlook on life, but is arming her and her fellow colleagues with life skills that cannot be replaced. She says that Cuba may not be as privileged as other countries, and life may not be as luxurious as they thought, but they are proud of this life that is filled with books, dancing, music, and getting to know different kinds of people from all over the world. Ms. Maketa confirms that sitting in a classroom where lecturers are all specialized doctors and professionals is something that further emphasizes how much has been invested in helping them to become the best doctors they can. They are not only learning about medicine, they are also learning about ethics and solidaridad, which is a Spanish equivalent of Ubuntu, and many other lessons. Lecturers pay a lot of attention to students and work hard to make sure that they understand as best as they can. In closing, her letter, Komisani says, it has been an honor for her to be chosen as part of this program, and is very sure that one day they will come back to be part of a movement that will make South Africa a better
Honorable
and
Member,
a healthier.
the time for your statement has ended. The
Indeed,
APC
ANC is proud.
The APC.
Thank you, Speaker. The APC would want to raise an issue we raised during the debate on Parliament's budget, which is the unfair and unjust eviction of the people of Bukamuso in Maluti-Apofung municipality in the Free State. Not only was it bad that they were evicted a few weeks after the elections on a cold winter's day, and their belongings trucked away from them, but because despite commitments that they will be resettled, these people have not up to now been resettled. We understand there is talk of resettlement, but this is only for a few, and the municipality is now saying that as for the rest, they do not know them. And this includes people who the municipality have dumped at the youth center, where I had reported that they are staying there without food. Males are sleeping in beds without mattresses. We are calling upon the Department of Culture and Human Settlement to intervene and assist these our people. I wonder whether Parliament, through the acting set to Parliament, have actually responded to the letter that they had sent to Parliament requesting Parliament's intervention. Thank you.
ANC.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, the African National Congress distances itself from a reckless music group called Ama Comrades, which is based in KwaZulu-Natal and who have published an anti-Indian song. The toxic song that has been doing the rounds in the underground music circles is heavily loaded with hate speech lyrics, which undermines our nation-building project and seeks to reverse the gains of our freedom. The ANC has worked hard to unite South Africans across racial divides in pursuit of a non-racial society and continues to engage on social cohesion programs to strengthen national unity. We will not allow the abuse of freedom of expression, nor tolerate those who plow seeds of divisions. We call on communities to separate these elements and distance themselves from such music that mocks our hard-earned democracy and struggle for national unity. The ANC is committed to South Africa and its constitution. And as such, we will continue to build a united and democratic South Africa, able to take its rightful place as a sovereign state in the family of nations. I thank you.
The DA.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The future of the tourism industry faces a major threat with the implementation of the new visa regulations. Studies undertaken show that these regulations will cut Chinese travel to South Africa by 70%, and overseas travel agencies are already diverting clients away from South Africa and stopped marketing our destination. This is a market which has shown 55% growth in visitor numbers to South Africa since 2009. Madam Speaker, industry has made it clear that Minister Gigaba's new regulations will kill tourism and with it jobs and growth from the industry. The DA will petition Parliament to intervene in this matter before these regulations destroy the country's tourism sector. In addition to this, we also submit that the introduction of electronic visas will drastically cut the turnaround time for the issuing of travel documentation and are in fact more secure than existing permits. It is crucial that the Department of Tourism takes heed of our proposal in order to protect the income that tourism generates for South Africa. The National Development Plan cites tourism as one of the growth pillars of our economy, and according to Stats South Africa, tourism employs almost 600,000 South Africans and contributes almost 90 billion rand to our GDP. Madam Speaker, that is why most countries are trying to relax requirements for tourist visas, and it seems the ANC have missed this trend completely. Thank you.
The ANC.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
2014 marks 15 years since the inception of the department. I'm here.
Can I allow that member to speak? The honorable member that side.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Morte Local Municipality is the one of the 5 local municipalities found in the General Platinum District Municipality in the Northwest Province. Water remains critical challenges in the area. Therefore, as the ANC, we pass a message of gratitude for the effort made by the President towards the alleviating water challenges in the Ngobi and surrounding areas, and also that villages around the Ngobi. This will go a long way, showing to the whole of the municipality and the country as a whole that President is presiding over a government that cares. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, honorable member. The honorable member that side.
Thank you, Speaker. 2014 marks 15 years since the inception of the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries Female Entrepreneurship Award. The official award ceremony took place on Friday, the 22nd August 2014 in Mafikeng under the theme, Recognizing the Role of Women and Their Contribution to Africa's Agriculture and Food Security, and was a celebration of the achievements of women in the sector during Women's Month. The ANC would like to congratulate the 2014-15 overall winner, Ms. Ivy Nokwanele Mzamo, from the Eastern Cape in winning this prestigious award. To all the participants, your nomination itself should serve as an honor and encouragement to continue the good work you are doing. In the agriculture sector, you have the space and creativity to make a unique contribution to South Africa and farms in particular. The ANC-led government is proud of the various initiatives directed towards improving living conditions of farm workers and in particular of women involved in the agricultural sector. The transformation of this male-dominated sector is not only about broadening participation by women, but also about bringing to bear the experiences of female farmers and introducing new ways of conducting business in the sector. In conclusion, I would like to commend the Minister for Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Honorable Sanzeni Zokwana, sponsors of the event and the representatives of the sector for working together in this process. The success of the entrepreneurs in the agriculture sector is a victory for all of us. I thank you.
The AIC.
Honorable Speaker, the AIC feels obliged to mention that it is the only party with a unique background of its establishment in this House. Of all parties founded post-1994, It is the only party formed by the ordinary, voiceless, but disciplined citizens of this country, while others are formed by their leaders. The parliament is expected to take decisions and make laws which directly affect these poor masses on the ground, who think are well represented by the leaders here. The National Assembly, therefore, needs to work towards betterment of the poor citizens of the Republic of South Africa. And when doing that, we need not to leave them behind. People must be at the core center of any discussions and decisions we make. South Africans deserve and expect better services from this House, mostly when one considers the history of this country. We need true leaders whose identity and credentials are not forged, but can be proven in this House. Abantu mabazi ukuba ngobani abathatha izigqibo ngabo. Kungathi emva kweminyaka engamashumi amabini kube kungona kuvela ukuba kukhona abantu abebengaziwa kwalapha ngaphakathi kulendlu kodwa ebenenxaxheba ekwenziweni kwemithetho yelizwe eminye engabaphathanga kakuhle
Siyabulela tata ixesha
njenge
likuphelele.
Constitution 13 Amendment Act of 2007. Thank you.
The ANC.
Thank you, Speaker.
Madam Speaker. The ANC welcomes the newly appointed chairperson of South African Tourism, Mr. Zwelibanzi Mtambo, and wishes the outgoing chairperson, Mr. Frank Kilborn, well in his new journey. Mr. Zwelibanzi Mtambo has vast experience in the tourism industry, coupled with his strategic leadership and management skills. We are positive that he will ensure that South African tourism achieves its mandate. Tourism is a very important sector in the economy, and as we put all our efforts in ensuring that we achieve these goals as set in the NDP, we need a capable leader who is innovative and results-driven. We are confident that Mr. Mtambo is the right person for the job. We congratulate Mr. Zwelibanzi Mtambo and trust that he will guide the organization to better serve the industry and ensure that this sector continues to grow. Thank you.
The DA. Run out of ideas. Oh, okay.
Sengifikile.
Khuluma ke ba.
Honorable Speaker, ngicela ukuchaza kahle ukuthi igama lami uMazambane wakalizi. Ngisuke eMnambithi mina. Ngimela iDA. Honorable Speaker, Ms. Bedeni Sitole, who lives in a remote part of Ndaka in KZN, was falsely accused of propagating Insango, otherwise known for those of you who don't know what Insango is, cannabis, and was seriously assaulted by the members of the South African police. The members of the police apparently beat 7-month pregnant Bedeni so savagely that she landed up in the Church of Scotland Hospital in Tugelafed. During her hospitalization, her triplets, a girl and 2 boys, died. The loss of these precious children was clearly a direct consequence of the vicious treatment Bedeni received at the hands of the South African police. The 3 tiny graves at the Sitole home bear sad testimony to this barbaric attack. Members of the community believe that the South African police have become their enemy and have adopted the tactics of the apartheid police. Instead of arresting the guilty police members and making sure that they are charged, instead, the investigating officer has not even visited Bedeni, the victim. Instead, a police constable was sent to see her. The police have attempted to get documents with unknown contents signed by Bedeni. The community believe that this was an attempt by the police to get the charges against their guilty SA police colleagues withdrawn. The DA calls upon the Minister of Police to intervene urgently to ensure that the perpetrators of this heinous act are identified, are charged to the full extent of the law. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
That concludes member statements. Are there any ministerial responses? Honorable Surti.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to thank the Honorable Member for drawing the attention of the House to the adoption of sign language as a language in the curriculum. This is indeed an important milestone in the history of our system of education. Other milestones that we can indeed celebrate is the fact that our workbooks for literacy and numeracy from grades 1 to grade 3 are now in Braille. We can also celebrate the fact that we are exploring the use of technology to enhance learning for children that have special disabilities. And indeed, we have declared last year as the year for inclusive education. The challenges in inclusive education abound, but I think we are making serious, tangible steps in the right direction. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister Sisulu.
Honorable Speaker, this is in response to a statement made by the APC. To the honorable member of the APC, we in the ANC are equally very concerned about the spate of evictions across the country, especially in the Western Cape, and the manner in which they are undertaken. I have no knowledge of a letter that might have been sent from your constituency about this matter to Parliament, but if you could help me find it so that we can attend to the matter almost expeditiously. In every event of evictions, I have been in contact with either the MEC of the province or the Premier, and on many occasions have been able to prevail on the municipalities concerned to follow due processes as laid out in the PI Act. I established an inquiry on one of the most widely reported, most inhuman evictions, that was the Luandle eviction. We hope that out of its conclusion, we will be able to attend to the root causes of evictions and on such a scale that is unacceptable as it happened in this particular case. We want to make sure that at the conclusion of this inquiry, we will be able to take remedial steps, either in policy or in tightening up the laws that deal with evictions. We remain very horrified, finally, by the manner in which these evictions occur. And just last week, 4 people were killed in Philippe in this province. It was atrocious.
Honorable Pando.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we'd like to agree with the honourable member from the ANC concerning the rape that was committed by an official in KwaZulu-Natal. We believe the action is reprehensible at any time in the year. And thus we do join the member in expressing our horror and calling upon our justice and police force to certainly take strong action against the alleged perpetrator. Secondly, Madam Speaker, I wish to assure the honourable member from the DA that the African National Congress fully respects the Constitution of South Africa. It is the African National Congress which played the most important role in ensuring that we have the Constitution that we enjoy today in South Africa. Furthermore, unlike the honourable member, I of course will not use my opportunity granted by you to stand at the microphone to reflect on the honor of any institution or person. But I will say that if an institution of any of the aspects of the Constitution begins to be utilized primarily as a political witch hunt, then certainly in the public domain where these matters are being raised, we have a right to reply, ridiculous or not. There is no institution that has a right to make public statements and expect that you do not respond. Our Constitution does not abrogate freedom of expression to particular persons and not to others. And so we cannot hide behind the Constitution to express our hatred of President Zuma, which has been done in this House by parties that have shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and will continue to shrink. Thank you very much.
Honorable Zulu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. From the Ministry of Small Business Development, we would like to thank Member Mpho Kwane for raising the issue of the winner Ivy Nogwanele Mzamo from the Eastern Cape. From our department, Honorable Speaker, would like to say that this is clearly an indication that South Africans are getting up and standing up and doing things for themselves. We congratulate Nogwanele Mzamo and would like to say to all South Africans, today enterprise development and entrepreneurship are the buzzwords. And would like to request that South Africans who have the capacity and the tenacity to stand up and do things for themselves, to also follow on the footsteps of Ivy Nogwanele and stand up for themselves, Honorable Speaker, because the world is no longer waiting on us, particularly us as Black people. The world wants to see us working.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. In response to Honorable Mabaso's statement, siyambongela kakhulu uMiss Maketa. Indeed, she's one amongst many who have benefited through the South Africa-Cuba training program. As government, we are determined to send even more students to Cuba and to many other countries in our quest to acquire skills which we are currently not producing as a country. Honorable Babu institutions, thank you very much.
Honorable Masuta.
The comments made by Minister Pandu, we just wanted to share information that the accused is still in police custody and is expected to possibly apply for bail on the 28th. And also on that same breath to encourage members of the community, to interest of the community is also taken into consideration. But it is really unfortunate that on a Women's Month, an incident of this nature happens in our courts, which are of specialized sexual offenses courts, which are state-of-the-art courts, and they have demonstrated efficacy in dealing with sexual offenses because of the specialized way in which they deal with this kind of offenses. Secondly, Speaker, with regard to the comments of a banned and non-sexism, we also, as this House passed in 2000, the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair, Inequality Act, which amongst others create mechanisms such as the Equality Court and other measures to deal effectively with racism and outlaw sexism and other forms of discrimination in our society. And we have created as this democratic country. I thank you.
That will be the last ministerial response. For the day. So we now come to the subject for discussion. The last item on the order paper is the subject for discussion in the name of Mr. G.G. Hill-Lewis product. Honorable members, I've been informed that the Honorable Leader of the Opposition will take charge of the motion in terms of NA Rule 71. I now recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
because the signals of global rating agencies is that our economy has hit code red. I think it hurts every true patriot to admit that South Africa is not working. 7.5 million people cannot find work. Life for the average person is an uphill struggle for daily survival. In fact, this number is climbing, and I think the ANC has lost the plot on real job creation. How did it get to this? Well, how is it that we are in a state of red alert? For one thing, our small businesses are being strangled in red tape. Our economy has also been crippled by other reds in our government, the Communist Party and COSATU. You see, the president likes to preach the gospel of the NDP, but the reds in cabinet undermine it at every turn. The value of the rand with devaluation, even though the NDP strongly advocates against it. COSATU and the SACP blocked the youth wage subsidy for 3. There's obviously the red berets in this house. They propose policies that will destroy our economic prospects within 1 generation. Policies that have failed
Honourable
wherever
Speaker.
they've been implemented.
Honourable Speaker.
After consigning a whole
Order.
population.
Point of order.
Order. What's the point of order, honourable member?
The honourable member speaking there speaks of red berets in this house.
No,
Can
honourable
you...
member, that's not a point of order. The issue of a red beret.
Policies that have failed wherever they've been implemented after consigning whole populations to the backburners of the world economy. Where there's outmoded policies have been implemented, they have made their leaders fabulously wealthy, whilst the majority of their people, Nkandla and on-point engineering on the other hand. It's the same coin. Government of millions and millions of rands in tender scandals and bridges collapsed. Did they pay back the money? I think last Thursday was the president's question time since the 6th of November in 2013. It should have been a red letter day. Instead, it descended into chaos as an... And so, in fact, the president escaped accountability last week. By undermining this institution, the president had the perfect excuse to leave the House, wriggle out of the bonds of parliamentary accountability like a letter-day Houdini. I think the Speaker played her part by shielding the President from questions that she completely lost control of this House. They keep this House still in check. I beg to differ.
Speaker,
Honourable Pando.
We are not speaking to the debate at all. And in fact, I believe, Speaker, that the member is infringing the very Rule 68 we referred to earlier.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
And I'm not sure what the topic is, because the topic is about corruption. And when you have a parliament that fails, it means our institutions are being weakened. It's without fail that if we want to get back on track, we have to reinvigorate the institutions that hold.
You are the leader of the opposition. You actually ought to be exemplary. And when you have issues to raise them in the right forums.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Honourable
CNAs
CNAs,
to articulate their ideas in this House.
We've been given a topic here. The leader of the opposition is leading the debate. Honourable Leader of the Opposition who are listening.
I reiterate that, in fact, the downgrades have been focused on the subject of corruption. And so I do believe Parliament plays a very crucial role. What we need is a strong Parliament that will give confidence in the economy, that will in fact ensure that the executive is being held to account, that there's legislative certainty, and that Parliament passes laws.
Honourable Speaker, on Rule 50. Honourable Speaker, Rule 50 suggests that the presiding officer, after having called attention to the conduct of a member who persists in irrelevant or repetitive arguments, I call Honourable Speaker to call the member to order, please.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, I really would like you to finish your speech.
Madam Speaker, may I address you?
Address me, Honourable.
There's some hanky-panky going on here in this House, and we need to deal with it. What the Honourable Leader of the Opposition has said very clearly is that the subject matter which he is dealing with is very clearly linked to the topic on the order paper today. The international ratings agency say so, the business reports say so, economic data says
Honorable, proceed, Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
In fact, this House must be strong enough to be able to withstand the governing bodies, the governing party's attempts to weaken Parliament's oversight role. It should be strong enough to enforce its rules and when opportunists undermine them. And in fact, it begins with the Speaker's
Honourable
commitment.
Speaker, I'm sorry to interfere. Is the Honourable Leader of the Opposition prepared to answer a question?
No.
No.
Are you prepared to answer a question, Honorable Maimane?
No.
Okay.
And if we can get some policy coherence in this government, we can dare to dream that every child in this generation will have a job one day. If we dare, we can foresee a future South Africa with a DA national government and, in fact, 6 million real jobs for South Africans in every province. If we focus all our energies on policies that grow the economy and create jobs, we can roll back poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Through implementing the National Development Plan, instilling confidence for investors, and making South Africa indeed truly open for business, we can grow this economy. But if we do not, we will keep open the doors for policies that will destroy the
Honourable
prospects.
Speaker, will the member take a question?
Are created for pals. You end up with these kinds of situations in this House. If we don't address the issues of policy coherence, therefore, we need to make sure that we put policies on the table that open the door for investment to come to South Africa, that will improve the prospects of South Africans out there. This destiny is in our hands.
Deputy President, honorable members of our distinguished House. Now, the nation is being lied to. The leader of the opposition is citing the reports of the credit rating agencies, which are not as the key cause of the downgrade. That's a pure lie. So don't come here and take chance because you are always seeking for negativity, even where it is not there. Honorable Speaker, I stand here, proudly so, on behalf of our beloved organization, the ANC, to challenge and rebuke liberal conceptualization, suggest that growth is a priority that must be preceded by development, as sponsored by the people on my left, as a deduction from growth. As the ANC, we argue, in and of itself, growth is, of course, a basic goal of our developmental state. However, our government should not pursue growth for growth's sake. We can't separate one from the other, Honorable Maimane. The key to this approach is the ANC's government infrastructure.
Honorable Speaker, I'm standing on the point of order. Rule number 47, which reads, thus, no member shall be interrupted by another member. And
programs that provide access to modern effective service like electricity, water, telecommunications, transport, health, education, science and technology services, and training for all our people. This program both meets the basic needs and opens up previously suppressed economy and human potential in urban and rural areas. In turn, this then increase output in all sectors of the economy, and by modernizing our infrastructure and human resource development, export capacity will, of course, as a corollary, be enhanced. This approach is underpinned by our tried and tested counter-cyclical financial stance, which on Friday, 13th of June, 2004, when Standard & Poor's downgraded South Africa foreign credit rating by a notch to BBB negative. S&P, which is Standard & Poor's, justified its decision by stating the following, that the fiscal deficit is ever increasing at a rate that is unsustainable. To respond positively to this perceived weakness in a manner that will satisfy S&P, It states that government, we should have a balance sheet and ignore the mandate that our people has given the ANC to improve the quality of their lives, that what counts is the repaying of the debt above anything else. We can agree to this. Classically, this is how they have dealt with African countries, original targets. SNP does not consider the fact that for purposes, amongst others, of easing the burden of doing business. But also they went further to say, the leader of the opposition, that South Africa is a high labor wage. Not substantially investing both in the economy and its human resource. Its contribution to the developmental agenda of the country is seriously lacking. It only came as no surprise that on the 20th of August, just recently, 2004, Moody's one-notch cut for local currency deposit ratings for Standard Bank of South Africa, First Rand, Nedbank, and the Absa Bank did not only follow African Bank Investment Limited being taken in curatorship, but the Moody's supported its erratic act by saying that South Africa Reserve Bank has over and above limited the risk of contagion, showing that it was willing to impose losses on creditors. The South African capacity from developing new infrastructure and creating decent jobs and sustainable livelihoods. Honorable Speaker, it is tried that credit ratings contribute to determining a country's cost of borrowing and influence investment structure, and as a corollary, capital inflows and currency value. However, if there is no attempt at balancing economic efficiency drivers with economic equity imperatives, Torah of downgrades. Lest we forget, the friends of the credit rating agency, lest we forget the Lehman Brothers saga. Until close to its collapse, they were given an excellent rating of AAA+ by these agencies. We agree with those who refer to the recent Moody ratings as junk, and therefore the solution cannot be in how to avoid the economic tactics of the SAPs and the Modis of this world, who seek to employ pain and reward tactics to control the agenda of development state. We are not going to succumb to this. The solution that must be driven by us as the ruling party.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Shivambu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. You know, I agree with the sages that say that a drowning man would cling on a straw. I mean, how do you lead a discussion and now you divert? Of the DA is setting the opposition leader for failure because they misguide him in terms of some of the critical interventions that should be made here. Now, as the official opposition, we're going to give a proper perspective on this issue of downgrading. Look, we don't agree that the and poor Fitch, all of them failed dismally to understand the nature of capitalist economic crisis. Capitalism in its very nature is crisis prone. There will be a time where there will be overproduction of goods and services to exist. So that is the proper characterization of a capitalist crisis. But Moody, Fitch, and Standard & Poor's does not only characterize Moody and these credit rating agencies, it defines how the South African government and society predominates of economic development and trade and industry. There are certain things that you must put in place. I mean, as early as 1990, Robert Wade had said that we need to identify. There are certain things which they made as interventions. The first thing that they did was to redistribute agricultural land to all the people equitably. The second thing that they did was to control the financial system and subjected all private financial systems to industrial capital, to say that this is what we should pursue. The third thing that they did is foreign competition of their domestic industries. The fifth thing that they did was to promote the acquisition of technology and utilize technology in their expansion. The sixth thing that they did was to target specific industries and sectors that needed to be supported. Now, there is radically a misdiagnosis of all these aspects in terms of how we want to make interventions that will industrially expand South Africa. There are lots of interventions, but monetary policy is still left intact with the Reserve Bank, which independently and on behalf of the minerals energy complex continues to set monetary policy in fashions that will reproduce the inequalities and the economic balances that have defined society for a very long time. There isn't a proper control of the financial system and the private financial sector as a whole. There are lots of things that are being done, but there is no control of the private banking sector, and you'll never realize any form of industrial expansion and stabilization of the economy unless you have dealt those issues. So those are some of the things that we are dealing with to give proper guidance to South African Parliament in terms of how we must understand the structural deficiencies of the South African economy. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, please don't outsource the concluding of your remarks to the chair. Time yourself, and so that we operate better. Honorable member.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, credit ratings are one of the tools used to determine whether or not our country is stable enough to accommodate foreign direct investment, which in turn determines how much capital actually comes into the country and affects the value of our currency. The rating agencies Standard & Poor's as well as Fitch lack confidence in government's ability to stabilize the country and do not have much faith in some cabinet members appointed by the president due to their disappointing track records. A defensive and emotive response to these downgrades does not help. Rather, they must be matched by sober, decisive, and measured leadership from government. These downgrades present us with a unique opportunity to be comprehensively introspective about our situation. And as an emerging global economic player, we must be thick-skinned to the pressures and standards of the global arena. What we must remember, of course, is that these agencies are expressing their economic views, and what they say should not be seen as the alpha and omega of South Africa's progress. We can only do our part to correct any negative perceptions that they may have about us, which must include implementing corrective action when necessary or clarifying the actual state of our country's economy if we deem the agencies to be wrong. Not to complain, not to crowd foul, but to actually man up. The rating agencies can be used as yardstick measures of how foreign direct investment can be attracted to South Africa. We also need to see a practical implementation of the National Development Plan, because whilst there are disagreements about certain aspects of the NDP, it is generally accepted as a tool we can use to accelerate economic growth, create jobs, and alleviate poverty. Government cannot afford to be double-minded with this issue as happened with nationalization. There were so many conflicting utterances from government that it was not clear whether nationalization was something that government wanted or not, or was just spoken about to appease alliance partners. We cannot afford to have our government be so indecisive again. We cannot restore investor confidence if we're not even confident in the abilities of our own government. Our government must inspire confidence and muster the political will to actually get things done. The economy needs certainty and decisive leadership that does not buckle to the whims of the tripartite alliance. At the sneeze of COSATU, we all catch the flu. Sanity must prevail and stability must be restored. Strike action must be avoided as much as possible. The platinum strike action, which lasted over 5 months, not only affected the mining industry, but spilled over into the manufacturing and retail sectors, as the consequences are still being felt today. So in conclusion, after all is said and done, what is needed is a government that actually has the political will to get things done and respond positively to the downgrades that we see. And that leadership must begin from the very top of our government, and the indecisiveness must come to an end. I thank you.
Honorable Kubisa from NFP.
Deputy Speaker, honorable members, the NFP is of the view that there are varied reasons for downgrading of South Africa's economy by rating agencies. The downgrading should ring alarm bells that caution all of us in the corridors of power, starting from this House, the executive, the business sector, and the civil society. Perhaps we need to identify those elements that lead us astray and deter us from the course of economic growth targets that we set ourselves as a country. And of course, if we have to do that, we have to do with the issue of governance and administration, and of course, good leadership. As a country, we also need to develop some skilled personnel and place the right positions. We need to boost the investor confidence by showing that we can manage and govern correctly. We need to produce our own goods and commodities within our own country, process them within our country before exporting them. We need to mine our own gold, diamond, or platinum, process them within the country, and use our wealth to support our cause first, and then export the already processed products. We need to invest in shipping, transport, energy, telecommunications, agriculture, technology, and deal with water bottlenecks. The escalating energy prices is also a cause for concern. The government has to play a visible role when it comes to leveling the ground on matters of labor relations. The employers needed to have done the right things to avert the recent saga that left 34 miners dead and many injured in Marikana. The costs to the country as a whole were huge. Our GDP has fallen to 0.6% as mining production fell by 25%. If this kind of a scenario is not controlled, without being rather pessimistic, we may be heading for an economic crisis. The country has a task of dealing once and for all with the visible remnants of apartheid migrant labor system that serve to perpetuate poverty and inequality. Workers in the mine sector have to get decent salaries and decent housing. At the moment, they are living under conditions of squalor. Preference should be given to the right people, the black people, and the previously marginalized when it comes to the issuing of licenses. The socio-economic conditions of mine workers and the people living within the vicinity of the mines must be improved. They need schools, they need clinics, they need decent housing, water and sanitation, etc. It is no secret, Honorable Deputy Speaker, that Nigeria is now sitting on top and has knocked us off the perch, and we are second to Nigeria when it comes to investor confidence. We have to breed a fertile ground where we encourage SMEs to grow. Young professionals must be given entrepreneurial skills, and we need to nurture business owned by youth and women. I thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Please practice timing your speeches, honorable members. It's easy, it's only very brief. Honorable Kwankwa, I hope you'll time yours better.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Sekela Mongameli, Republic of South Africa, and Honorable, informing investor decisions about the underlying risks of debt instruments in financial markets. The rating agencies have a bearing on our cost of borrowing as bichiulo. So ignore them or ignore their advice at our own peril. We agree entirely with the leader, the real leader, official leader of opposition, in setting a scene of what are the challenges as Bangala that contribute to downgrade wethu, like into final weak leadership is highlighted. Noguti kufuna go improve governance and so on. Zinyani sangeke sikwazi uzibaleka. However, rating agencies are not above reproach. They are not infallible. Like the rest of us, they too make mistakes. For proof, one is to look no further than the role they played during the 2008 subprime crisis. During this period, they gave favorable pre-crisis ratings to insolvent financial institutions and risky mortgage-backed securities, which contributed to the collapse of the US market. In essence, Infumela now Honorable Floyd Shivambu, but for different reasons, that as the rating agencies nazo ziyaphazama, they make mistakes, siyakwazi ukuthi misinform, and when they do that, they don't want to take responsibility. For an example, contrast this lax approach, the one abayisenzing in the 2008 subprime crisis, with Moody's decision to punish Capitec Bank for the sins and mistakes of African Bank, even though the business models of the two businesses are vastly different. consider as well Moody's overreaction in downgrading our 4 financial banks when we know that we have one of the healthiest and most sophisticated banking systems in the world. Siphinde sibone ukuthi once more they make mistakes. That said, since sonke siphuma singena kule debate, we should not shy away from the fact that the demise of African Bank points to serious challenges facing unsecured lending market, where some of our financial institutions engage in reckless lending, despite the legislative and other mechanisms that we've put in place as a country to curb this problem. This irresponsible behavior results in a situation where debt servicing takes a huge chunk of the poor's disposable income, and this is the But overall, the downgrading of the country and the economic growth when we provide proper leadership. Good country as a whole, how we manage our affairs, how we manage and distribute resources. We need to look at what are the recommendations, because they always make recommendations as specific and as precise, what steps we would need to take or to improve in order to turn the whole situation around and grow economies in the right. And Diabulela, thank you very much, Speaker.
Okay. Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Alberts.
Thank you, Speaker. The road to serfdom is paved with bad debt. In our context, one can aptly state that the road to Marikana was paved with bad debt, amongst others. The reality is that we may be facing more Marikanas in future if we do not take drastic action. The Minister of Finance has now indicated he will probably downgrade his own growth forecast to 1.8%. This is besides the Fitch sovereign downgrade. Transnet is also facing a downgrade since it lost the class action institutional e-tolls. Downgrades, gloomy outlooks, and economic contraction is currently the name of the game. Yet it does not have to be so. There is a way out. There is still time, but we have to act now. Daar is eksterne faktore wat 'n groot rol speel om Suid-Afrika se ekonomiese groei en werkskeping te kniehalter, maar daar is ook verskeie interne faktore wat binne ons beheer lê. Suid-Afrika het die geskiedkundige voordeel om te leer uit ander se foute en die beste beleidsstukke vanuit die wêreld te neem met die wete dat dit beproef is en werk. Daardie beleidsstukke verg net klein aanpassings vir ons eie omstandighede. We must take those rules that have worked worldwide and implement them to create a healthy environment that destroys poverty. Those prescripts can be found in the rules that have laid the foundation for the Industrial Revolution in England. First of all, strengthen property rights. ANC policy vacillation creates deep uncertainty and blocks investment. Rather than destroying wealth-creating property, unlock state-owned property for the poor and so democratize wealth. Secondly, continue to promote industrialization via IPAP, but create greater tax incentives for new and small businesses inside the SEZ. Thirdly, use cooperatives to create more community banks that can assist entrepreneurs. Create private-public partnerships with the big banks to do the same. Currently, unsecured lending is used mostly for consumer spending that traps people in a never-ending spiral of debt. Start focusing on training and mentorship with an eye on merit appointments. Focus and fight new forms of economic exclusion. Deepen democracy by devolving more power to communities. Fight new forms of political exclusion. Hierdie reëls toegepas sonder vooroordeel en korrupsie kan Suid-Afrika omdraai. Maar sonder hierdie basiese reëls kan ons begroot vir 'n baie donker toekoms. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable George.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Earlier today, Stats SA announced that South Africa's economy grew by a paltry 0.6% in the second quarter of this year. Our economy is not growing anywhere near its full potential and contracted by 0.6% in the first quarter. It is clear that we will not even reach 2% economic growth this year. At this rate, there are over 7 million unemployed people in our country will not be able to find jobs. ANC, corruption, cadre deployment, and disregard for the law are at the very core of this crisis. People are losing faith in our institutions and our economy. The negative outlook on our credit rating and the recent downgrade of our banks by Moody's are indications that the world is losing faith in our government's ability to keep South Africa growing. We must understand the context we operate in. 3 years ago, Standard & Poor's downgraded its credit rating of US government debt. This was an outcome of the global financial crisis that nearly collapsed the global financial system, caused by corporate greed in the banking sector. It matters how agencies rate the debt issued in an economy because it signals crucial information to participants who then react to this information. Moody's downgraded paper from Standard Bank, Nedbank, ABSA, and FNB after the crisis at African Bank and the intervention of the Reserve Bank and the National Treasury to prevent its liquidation. This intervention was appropriate because nothing happens in isolation, especially in an economy as vulnerable as ours. If African Bank had been left to fold, it would have worsened the already deteriorating confidence in our economy. Similar to the cause of the subprime crisis, African Bank has operated an extremely risky business model, offering unsecured loans to vulnerable consumers. The rescue package saw African Bank divided into two banks. The so-called good bank will be recapitalized with an injection of 10 billion rand to be funded by several banks and the Public Investment Corporation, and also invests the money of the government employees' pension fund. The so-called bad bank consists of underperforming loans and was purchased by the Reserve Bank for 7 billion. Although the Reserve Bank says that it will pursue payment of these loans, they are unlikely to be repaid. The other rating agencies did not downgrade as Moody's did because they do not expect contagion from African Bank to spread into the banking sector or the broader economy, but they will remain vigilant. It is clear that the negative sentiment is not specifically about the banks. It is about the state of our economy, and it is being driven by concerns over corruption, concern over the undermining of our key institutions, and the destructive actions of corrupt leaders in the ANC and now also on the opposition benches. African Bank offered loans to consumers who were simply unable to repay them and have no assets to offer as collateral to offset the bad debt. In Europe, after the subprime bubble burst, public finance teetered on the brink, and this was a stern warning for us that government cannot always borrow its way out of a slowdown, and that public sector payroll cannot indefinitely increase. Now, at a time when we have low growth and higher inflation, our economy faces the real threat of stagflation. This becomes more difficult to reverse the longer government remains frozen in the headlights and the longer our institutions are undermined by irresponsible political leaders with narrow interests. Government needs to ask itself what enabling legislation has been passed over the past 5 years to stimulate growth. Close analysis will show that government has got in the way of accelerated growth potential. The current visa regulation fiasco reflects a government tilting at windmills instead of taking decisive action. Of regulation, but these must facilitate and not obstruct. It is possible with sufficient thought. In my 2.5 years service on SCOPA, it became abundantly clear that our public financial system is seriously compromised and that there is no political will to clean up the waste and corruption that leaks over 30 billion rand each year that could be spent on servicing the most vulnerable members of our society. Before the crisis that now serves as a convenient government excuse for economic non-performance, our economy was already on a low-growth trajectory. We missed the economy's boom, and our fragile economy was hammered by mindless calls for nationalization that did irreparable damage to our attractiveness as an investment destination. That roadblock on our path to prosperity for all of our people is now personified in Parliament by the EFF and the ANC. We should never forget that this had its genesis in a government that nurtured entrepreneurial scams that robbed the poorest members of our society. There is a significant role for government in our economy. It needs to generate sentiment conducive to growth. It can do this by being decisive on economic policy.
Your time has expired.
It can be clear. Thank you very much.
Honorable Khoza. Members, I draw your attention to the fact that it's her maiden speech.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, honorable members, fellow South Africans. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the negative economic outlook assigned by Fitch subsequent to the downgrading of our financial institutions is indeed bad news for South Africa. Of course, we agree with the opposition. It affects our cost of borrowing and can undermine our agenda of accelerating infrastructure investment. But what do we do as leaders when confronted with a serious economic challenge? Does it have focus on the real issues at hand? I don't think so. The Honorable Deputy Speaker, I want to submit that it is times like these when the strength, content, substance, and foresight of any leadership is tested. It is times of economic crisis, threat of worsening economic conditions for the majority of those trapped in poverty, the unemployed citizens, the threat of losing further jobs, that leaders, as they make economic policy positions and respond to such crises, should not just lament the problem. They should find alternatives. It is within this context that the African National Congress has adopted a position that is not alarmist, but a position that is taking this country forward. We have adopted a position that offers an alternative for, at the end of the day, we have no control over international commodity pricing and international credit rating agencies. Whether we agree with them or not, at the end of the day, we do not have the control. But what do we have the control over? We have the control of our own development financial institutions, your DBSA, your Industrial Development Corporation. We also do have a say in BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And of course, we have to embrace the establishment of the bank, the BRICS Bank, because those are some of the things that, as members of this House, must take into account whenever we are tackling a crisis. And honorable members, as an integral part of the African continent, we could leverage on the market opportunities that exist in our continent. It is said that private equity is set to grow rapidly across Africa. Continent-wide demand for capital should increase by about 8% a year between now and 2018. Annual growth could reach 20% in resource-rich Angola, and 9 or 50 billion in total investment is possible over the next decade. Hence, the ANC is cognizant of these opportunities. And those that are serving with us in the Finance Committee, they know that we have been supporting all the reforms, the legislative reforms that are going to enable that environment, where we play a role in developing the African continent, because without infrastructure investment, there would be no growth. And without infrastructure development, there would be no prosperous Africa. There would be no Africa century that we have declared. It is within this context, honorable members, that I had previously attributed the status of political and economic juveniles to the economic freedom fighters, which I have subsequently thought they are best called economic fighters of freedom. However, after Maimane, the leader of the opposition, has now exposed his inability to comprehend complex economic issues and the complexity of money markets in South Africa.
Honorable, what are you raising on, sir?
Some of the nation may disagree with us, but as of last Thursday, we were still honourable members, and it's the Honourable Maimane, the leader of the opposition.
Okay.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, I do apologize, Honorable Maimane. Honorable
Deputy Speaker.
What are you raising on?
Can you please rule if Honorable Lindiwe Masbuga is correct by saying high sugar is a parliamentary. Very disruptive, that lady, Chairperson. Very chaotic.
A point of order, Chair, on a point of order.
Yeah, honorable members, please take your seats. Yes, honorable member, what are you raising on? Kathleen. Honorable members, please.
Honorable member, honorable.
Deputy Speaker.
No, please don't speak before you are asked to take a seat. There's a member on the podium. please take your seat, Honorable Chivambo. There's a member
No,
on
but
the...
there's a word that must be withdrawn there.
Honorable member, take your seat because
There's a word that must be withdrawn there before I sit down, please.
No, honorable member, take your seat. Take your seat.
And then she's
Take
going to
your seat.
withdraw.
Take your seat, honorable member. Take your seat. Honorable member, what are you rising on?
Khona into ebizwa inhlonipho. U-honorable member ungibiza uLindiwe Mazibuko. Angazi ukuthi ubaba wami or uyini yena. Akaphendula kanjani uLindiwe Mazibuko. NguLindiwe Zulu.
Okay, honorable member. Honorable members, please desist from doing that. It's incorrect. Firstly, to act in an inappropriate manner, and when you have been requested not to do so and you proceed, you are creating a difficulty for us not to act with you harshly because you are creating disorder in the House. So when we plead with you to stop or to sit down, take your seat and do not all speak at the same time on the floor when members on the floor. We have no intention not to act, and we will do so. Mind your language and address members respectfully and by their names. Honorable member, proceed.
Thank you very much,
Honorable
Honorable
Deputy
Deputy
Speaker.
Speaker.
You see, she said, Unjoela Gabi, we're asking that she must withdraw that word, unless if it's acceptable, we'll use it as well.
Honorable Shibambo,
if that
you have
word is
just defied...
acceptable in terms of parliamentary language, we can use that word as well. I mean, like, we must be taught in terms of how this thing operates, please.
Honorable Shivambo, I have warned you that you don't speak before you are recognized to speak. If you do this again, we will be forced to ask you to leave the chamber. Okay? Yeah. Proceed, honorable member.
I'm hoping that I'm not going to
On
have
the point
any
of order, Speaker.
disruptions. What the heck is going on?
What are you raising on? On
No.
what point?
Deputy Speaker, uLindiwe Zulu said ungijwayela kabi. That thing must be withdrawn. It's unparliamentary, Deputy Speaker, please.
Honorable member, she is honorable member, okay? And I have requested you and have addressed that you must address each other properly, and I have said that to you and to them as well, okay? So please, you can't make rulings on behalf of the chair. You are not allowed to make rulings on behalf of the chair. Proceed, honorable
Deputy
member.
Speaker.
Yes, honorable member, what are you raising on?
Deputy Speaker, on a point of order.
Yes.
We have language in that in this House that is unparliamentary.
Yes.
And it's developed and it's offensive.
Yes.
And it's developed over the precedence of rulings.
Yes.
Now, if you allow the situation to stand where the Honourable Minister Zulu does not have to withdraw that, it becomes part of the precedence of the House, and it can be used generally in the House. So I think the better option, with respect, sir, is to ask her to withdraw that so it doesn't become part of the lexicon of this House.
No, absolutely. It can't be accepted as part of the lexicon. It is not in order. It is not respectful, and I've said so, honorable members. Yes. Yeah. Honorable members, take your seat. Honorable Shivambo, Honorable Zulu, Honorable Zulu, please take your space. No, rise, please. No, you can't be standing, honorable members. You are out of order. And we have spoken to you about it. You do that again, honorable members, I have no doubt what will happen to you. Honorable Zulu, the language you use, please withdraw it so that the House proceed.
Is the word ungijwayela kabi unparliamentary?
Yes, please, don't do that. You can't say that to members in the House here.
Okay, he must also withdraw calling me Lindiwe Mazibuko.
No, honorable member, you are debating with the chair and it's inappropriate.
I withdraw, marangangibiza uLindiwe Mazibuko.
Okay. Honorable members, you are going to get the kind of House you would like to prefer, right? So be careful of the language you use. Be careful of your attitude, including disrespecting the chair. It is out of order. Honorable member, proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. It is my wish that this House is going to be engaging constructively on such serious issues. It is for this reason, therefore, that I find it very disappointing that Honorable Maimane chooses to insult our financial services sector by attributing their downgrade to corruption. We all know that the downgrading of all banks has been largely flawed, in that one bank with fundamentally flawed financial business model has been blanketly applied to all our banks. That has been accepted by all the financial regulators out there. The African National Congress is saying, despite all these things that are happening, that we have no control over, we wanted to express our full confidence in our financial institutions. We have a very South Africa. Greg Mills, in his recent book, I'm not sure if some of you have seen that book, Why States Recover, has this to say, I open quote, "Countries can change for the better, but outsiders cannot fix state failures. Insiders are largely as responsible for their recovery as for their decline, since it is local politics, customs, and rules that overwhelmingly shape their choices and thus their destiny," close quote. This is indeed a profound and relevant message for us as leaders in South Africa. Today, we have to collectively pull each other up, for any weak link amongst us draws us all down into the ditch. Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker, I have to say this. One, this is an August month. I am saying this because it is beginning to worry me that this month, which is a month that has largely been dedicated to women, and to reflect on our gains and to review our own strategy as women about how best we are going to be advancing forward, is beginning to be taken over by other unnecessary things that are happening, that shouldn't be happening. The incident of the 21st of August is really regrettable, and I'm hoping that, Honorable Speaker, it is not going to be repeated, because it is these kinds of incidences that confirm to credit rating agencies that South Africa is not a stable environment, and yet South Africa is indeed a stable environment to invest in. Politically, Madam Speaker, in times of contracting economy and threat of increasing unemployment figures, the highest political institution must give direction and disallow forces of radicalized political grandiloquence to revert us back to tyranny and behave in ways that undermine our democracy. Democracy is not just a political concept, it is an economic concept. And therefore, we ought to understand that whatever actions we make as political leaders, they translate to economic consequences. Madam Honorable Speaker, I know for a fact that when South Africans decide to stand together, they do. We know what happened during the 2020 FIFA World Cup. We stood up together as a country. And all of us, we were really fellow countrymen and fellow countrywomen. The win of Amapogopogo in 1995 is a reminder of how best, if we choose to, we could be a proud united nation, not defined by misfortunes of our history. Allow me now, Deputy Speaker, to outline further alternatives that we could consider. You know, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Deputy Speaker, there was a debate previously about the universal wage. I know that most of the time we will talk about the universal wage as creating a dependency syndrome. But from what we have seen from the social grants, the 120 billion that we are giving to social grants recipients, we have seen how the retail sector has been financially included. They are now banking, and they were previously underbanked. And I do want to say, let's rather seriously consider the fact that we have a very large number of people that are not even counted in official unemployment statistics because they have stopped seeking employment. They no longer go out there. The universal job the universal wage might actually alleviate some of those challenges. During times like this, we have to be thinking soberly. And I also want to say, I don't want to respond to people that howl, because I'm not a howler, I'm a thinker. South Africa must remember its own strength. We have the National Development Plan, and it is this National Development Plan that is calling on us as South Africans to remember the fact that we still owe it to ourselves to bring everybody else, able men and women, back into the economic fold. We have to start thinking seriously about how best can we put this plan into practice, as opposed to just making overarching statements that sometimes are unfounded. And because actually it is the very ANC that has come up with these checks and balances of fighting corruption. And I find it extremely offensive